Hakim. Hey, Magua, quando you are from Standing Face Truth. Blessing of the new moon. Barakata Yahweh, Basham Yahweh, Yasharah, Nathan Lanawe, Hakadash, Bashalawam, the water, Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the new moon in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ali Ma'ar Shariah Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayam Mayim Yamya Oh Harim Mayan Yabawa Hazaria Yabawa Mayahu Shashat Shemayim Warataza Wako La Yanathan Lamawat Ragalia Yela Yanawam Shashwamarka Hanad La Yanawam Wala Yeshan Shashwamar Yeshirale Yahweh Shamaria Yahweh Tazalia Ayo Yim Yawamam Ashamash La Hakaya Wayarak La Balayala Yahweh Yashamaria Makam Ra Yashma Napasha Yahweh Yashma Hawalakya Wabuayat my third wa I will Basham Yahusha for what
Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil, shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharallah, Hero Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Amen. Sapullah Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abinawa Shabbat Shemayim Kodash Hayya Shanka Yahweh Malakwavka Taba'a Ratazawanka Hayya Aisha Baratazab Kaba Shemayim Latamanawa Lakham Yawam Sad Wasalaknawa Kabawatnawa Kasalaknawa Kabawatinawa Wala Abiyarnawa Oh Nasayawan Abo Hawashinawa Barakaya Laka Hamalakwa Wa Allah Wa Thaparat Why Walam Aman
6 and 9. So this man better therefore pray thee. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts and forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
Amen. The Aishara Matazawab, the Ten Commandments. La'ab, Yahayab, Lakab, Alahayim, Akharim, Alpanyat, La'ab, Taishab, Lakab, Paso, Wala'ab, Taibadam, La'ab, Talakwaka, Shamwab, Yahawab, Alahayakab, Lashawab, Sakab, Af, Hayawam, Hashabat, Lakodashwa, Kabab, Abiyakab, Wa Amakab, La'ab, Taratazak, La'ab, Tana'ab, La'ab, Taganab, La'ab, Tainad, Shakur, La'ab, Takamad, Ko, Asherab, Lara'ayikab, Amen.
Exodus 20:2. I am the Lord thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy power, am a jealous Father, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in the midst, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's house.
Amen. Yeshua, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, Asherat Anal Par Yagapim for Aman La Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, Yashar. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. And Magwa, Panya Wayaroshim, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakawam, Abiyah, Wanawa'ay, Aliyawan, Malak, Shal, Shemayim, Warataza, Wakot, Abarium, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawe, Arawanawe, Ahabnawe, Apalab, Yawaitaza, Yahawashai, Zakarnawe, Yahawah, Baratazawan, Ainka, Yasha'awe, Izarnawe, Banay, Wasap, Yasha'awe, Oh, Nanawe, Yam Yen, Aifa, Kayawamyam, Makodam, Babakushay, Shalak, Mike Allah, Watazwadak, Alahayam, La, Maganawa, Raparnawa, Washamab, Alnawa, Bakur, Shalak, Haruka, Shal, Yawashai, Lanawa, Lamanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Tabawana, Wada Ait, Shal, the Barka, Basham, Yahawashai, the Wada, Tham Yad, Waiwalam, Maman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, with also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, most high, we beg you. Right now, like the days of old, please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. May he send his spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Latham Lanawa, HaTorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Latham Lanawa, Awar, Larawat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Latan Lanawa, Quran, Ayub, La Quran, A'ain. Shabbat, be seated.
Oh, nice. You know the name? Okay. All right.
I think in the work there.
The picture?
Okay.
No, you can get that. Get done. Over Daniel was it over there? Daniel, you come by Sam?
So I'll say Shalom.
That Daniel was here, Tim?
Shalom Yasharallah.
Shalom.
Shalom, everybody here in the Philly school. Shalom, everybody listening in on live stream, and shalom, everybody watching on live stream, and shalom, everybody listening in on teleconference. Welcome to Asher al-Kanaz for the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the so-called descendants of slaves, as well as indigenous peoples, mainly found in North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean, make the southern and northern kingdoms of the 12 tribes of Israel. And that we fall into a lower state politically, economically, and religiously, because we broke the laws of God found in the Bible given to us by Moses. That we come out of this lower state we fall into by turning back to these commandments we broke by following Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. So one way we do that is by keeping the new moon holy, which is what we're doing tonight. This night being rare as we have a 13th new moon this year, which we don't always have, but we do sometimes, so that the new moons and the high holy days that we keep in between them always align in their proper season. Mm-hmm. This year, it just so happens that we have a 13th new moon. It typically happens every 3 years or so, but not always every 3 years. Just to make sure that since the lunar year is a little bit shorter than the solar year, 354 days as opposed to 365, sometimes 366 days of the solar year, we'll have a 13th moon sometimes to make sure that the Passover, which is supposed to happen in the springtime, won't end up happening, say, like in the winter. If so many days go by where you have 11 days less in a year, if you keep going without having a 13th moon, you'll end up having the Passover in the winter. And that can't work because you're supposed to have each high holy day in its proper season. Which, when you read in the scriptures, the Passover, which is our next major high holy day that's coming up, it's always in the time of what? The time of the barley harvest, mm-hmm. or when barley grows, and that comes in the springtime. It wouldn't grow up in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. And the scriptures you can read around that time, that's when we came out of Egypt, where it shows you that the barley was growing up. So here the high holy days have a certain season they come in. So we'll read a couple verses like we normally do for the new moon as a review. Mm-hmm. And I want to go into something that is in the scriptures, isn't necessarily always explicitly said, but we'll talk about power. Since we know our name in Hebrew, Yasher Allah means he or she is a prince or princess of power. I want to talk about power and its levels, so we can see it outlined in the scriptures, and then from that, we can get an understanding, if we don't have already, of power at any time, whether it was then or now or the future, how it works, at least externally, meaning in the physical world. So first, let's go to Numbers. Numbers chapter 10 and verse 10. And Pathak Mawak. If you could read that, Baba Kushan.
Chapter 10, verse 10.
Mm-hmm. And as we get that, you don't know already, my name is Nabia Rubber Ball. And write for your notes on your paper that it is the third, according to the Gregorian calendar, the 5th of March, 2019. And according to the Hebrew calendar, it's the 13th month and the first day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you get it, please? The whole book written in Hebrew? Okay.
It's the fourth book.
It'll be at the Leviticus.
It's the fourth book in the Bible. Hey, Mark, making out there, brother.
What you say?
Talking up the thought. It's not one of the ones missing pages, right?
Like this. That's it. This one went up, then it went down. I told you
This
that.
ain't that right, is it? Who's that? Okay. I know it's about a Bible back here.
Let me see the cover of that one you're using right now.
There you go. Put your hand in it, in a box.
Oh, that's
That's all Hebrew, ain't it?
yeah.
I asked you, was the English in it? You said yes.
They did it, but I did not understand.
And you know it goes from right to left, right? That one.
So you start from the back and go that way. I'm learning.
You have a KJV Bible you keep in your bag? What's that?
Hmm?
You have a King James Version Bible you keep in your Back?
I didn't bring it. I didn't go home.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even go home. That's why.
Yeah, definitely not that red one. It was missing pages.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
We all right? We all right?
I'll do this one.
This is good. Hey.
And as you get that, real quick, since I know you're pretty quick on the draw there, Zakar,
Say that again?
since I know you're pretty quick on the draw, I want you just to read this real quick. We want to get more into the practice of this as we do the classes and the holidays coming up. Real quick, bro, just read Nehemiah.
Numbers 10 and 10. It says,
Oh, hold on, before you read that. We want to be, or get better at doing this. Nehemiah chapter 8 and verse 8.
You want me to read that now?
Yes.
Okay, Nehemiah 8:8. So they read in the book in that law of God's destiny.
No. Say it again.
So they read in the book in the law of God distinctly,
Distinctly.
distinctly, and gave the sense and caused them to understand the reading.
Right. So what's that mean?
That means if it's something you can't read, I don't know if I'm going to answer the way you're thinking.
what is it, Nehemiah what?
8:8.
Well, just answer it correctly. That's all. Use your own
If
words.
it's something that you can't read and understand, you should leave it alone or ask for help.
What you said is true, but what's this verse saying? How does it relate to the verse?
Because you got to study the reading.
It just break down what the verse is saying.
So they read in the book in the law of God distinctly. I mean, constantly read over and over.
Not so much reading it over and over, but just
Understand what you read,
taking your time and going through it, making sure you understand as you read it word for word.
and gave the sense, I mean, to understand what they're reading,
Mm-hmm.
and caused them to understand the reading, as I just said.
Which is
To understand what we're reading and what it's about. We're reading about the new moon.
exactly. So they broke it down. You said we're supposed to understand it, but what the verse is saying is that they broke it down. It helped them to understand what they were reading. What you said is true. We're supposed to understand it, but if you don't understand it, you need someone to, as they go through it, to read it distinctly.
That's why I talked to her back here. Some people are information.
We read one part of the verse, we say, okay, what's that saying?
Okay.
And we get to the next part of the verse, okay, what's that saying?
Mm-hmm.
We get to the last part, okay, what's that mean?
Right.
Boom.
Right.
Then we know. So that's what they did then during that time, because we were coming out of captivity.
Right.
During the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. So as we come out of captivity in this time, firstly in the spirit, we want to do the same as you read through these verses. Whether it's in a class or a service or a high holiday, we always want to do that and get better at that.
I would say, I know that y'all do that now to get us to explain what you just read.
Exactly. This is the verse that tells us why we should do that.
And I would think that's good there too. Because like in math, my mom used to ask me to explain that to me. Yes, ma'am. You know? So I understand what you're saying. That's what that means, right? Explain what you just read to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And at first it's like that. Oh boy, right?
Yeah, but I couldn't say nothing other like
But,
that.
but once you understand it, then it's like, oh, okay, it means do-do-do-do.
I explained to my
And you
kids.
say, excellent. Okay, let's move on to the next thing,
Right.
since we're good to go with that.
I think that's good.
Because we fear we don't know, but once we know and can explain it, then there's nothing more to fear.
Like
Move
I
on to the
said-
next thing.
That's Mary, I know they're not anyway. Yeah, give us a little more.
Okay, so with that read, let's go to Numbers now, as you were about to read already.
Numbers
Let's read.
10 and 10.
Let's read that now.
Yes, ma'am.
Number 10 and 10. It said, also in the day of gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginning of your month, you shall blow with the trumpet over your burning offerings and over the sacrifice of your peace offerings that day. May be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God.
Right. So, a key new moon verse that we read, that we usually read when we go through this. So, give it a crack. Besides the sense.
What it is, it's a very,
A good thing to do, just as we do this, just go through the verse as you read it,
also,
precept by precept, and just explain as you go through.
also in the day of gladness and your solemn days in the beginning of the month. Okay, so it starts at the beginning of the month. It's the gladness in that particular month. So it's the beginning of that month you blow with the trumpet over your offerings, over your sacrifice of peace offerings, and they may be to you for a memorial. So, memorial for offerings that you have. It's a blessed day for offering that you give out. You say you should blow the trumpet for your burning offerings and over the sacrifice for peace offerings. So there's two offerings that you have. The blow the trumpet for the burning offerings and the sacrifice of the peace offering. This is like a memorial for your God. And it says, I am the Lord your God.
Okay. Anything else, or was that it? Okay. Not bad. So that's what we did, right? That's what we're doing now. Like you said, we're blowing with the trumpet. This ram's horn is like a trumpet. It says we did it during certain times. Solemn days, days of gladness, but also says beginnings of our months, which is when we're at right now.
Right.
So we did it tonight too. And just also keep this in mind too when we see burnt offerings and peace offerings. We did that before, but we don't do that now because we go through Christ.
Right.
As that key offering, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we know in the kingdom this is going to be set up again where we do the burnt offerings and the peace offerings.
Okay. Right now, we'll have to do it because Christ is on all of it.
Right. Because he's that ultimate sacrifice. He's that go-between at this point.
Right.
Until enough Israel wakes up.
Okay.
Oh, do you have a comment?
Yeah, on the phone right here. My man was reading out the Bible where I guess at his church, his pastor trade around about 100 times. That's different.
Okay, great.
Yeah, he passed. And he was reading out the Bible. We were supposed to do the dad time.
Yeah, that's a type of offering, at least in this time, as far as a monetary donation.
Mm-hmm.
But now these offerings are, things that are actually specific as far as animal sacrifices that we did.
No, they stopped that. Did they stop that, or did God stop that?
No, actually, it didn't stop at all. It's just by Christ being sacrificed.
Because some people overseas sacrifice the goat like it ain't no problem at all and eat it.
A lot of things go through your house.
Right, that's why I asked that thing.
So can I? Right?
Don't have to show.
Don't have to do it no more because Yahweh shot on anything.
Okay, this is like a yes or no. Do they still sacrifice? I know. Well, they sacrifice overseas. Like right here we at, we can't bring no goat in here.
Who's they?
They bought in the 12 tribes. These people here, they sacrifice goat.
Are they following the truth?
You know what? This as wherever I'm at, I'm gonna look at the phone. Now I get a lot of information. Because my man, how you get this information? And I held my phone up. But see now, I think I wrote it down. Probably in my old book right here. I got right here in the old book, the big book.
Okay, because if they're in the truth, they're going to be going through Christ.
Right.
Because
but you still can sacrifice the animal. Yes or no?
There's no need at this point because Christ shed his blood for all Israel to come back unto him.
Okay.
So we go through, like Bafat Mawak already illustrated, we go through the blood of Christ at this point.
So we don't have to sacrifice the animal no more. Okay. Well,
because Christ is that ultimate sacrifice. The sacrifice that we do now is by what? Us going out and sacrificing ourselves. Meaning we go out there and do this work. We go out there and speak the word and do the word.
Okay. So that's what I said in my head. I said, we don't do that here. So that's why I asked you, did God stop or did man stop? You said God stop?
No, it's not that it stopped. It's just that Christ's offering of his body supersedes the animal sacrifice at this point.
So God stopped. All right.
It's not so much stop. It's just he in his blood goes above and beyond the animal sacrifice. It's like you owe a debt.
I understand that, but so God stopped.
He took on it.
Okay.
How he shot took on that sacrifice.
God stopped it.
It's not, but you understand what I say by saying not stop. It's not literally him stopping the sacrifice. Because if he stopped the, hold on 1 second, but if he stopped the sacrifice, there would have been no need for Christ to die on the cross. It would have been a waste of time if there's no more sacrifice at all. We're just saying that Christ sacrificing himself, that supersedes the need to do the animal sacrifice because Christ lived a perfect life and he shed his perfect blood for the sins of the nation.
All right. I just want to know. They were.
No problem.
Overseas, they doing it.
So just show me what you're talking about.
Okay, next time.
So just, just show me what you're talking about next time so I can get some clarity on what you're talking about.
I'll text it to you.
Perfect.
No, not text it. No, you did the thing about Reggie White? Okay, you're not happy with it.
So if you could, I want you to read Psalms 81 now.
All right. Here we go. Psalm 81, young man.
Psalms 81.
81. Here we go. Psalm 81. What verse?
Verses 3 and 4.
Okay. You got the Job. Psalm 81, verse 3.
Psalms 81.
83, verse 81, verse 3 and 4.
Just to say kind once you have it.
81, verse 3 and 4.
Yes.
Done.
Psalm 81, verse 3 and 4. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob.
So give us the sense. Cause us to understand the reading. What do we just
As
read?
the first of the month, as he just read, looked at the reading, normal said, every month we blow the horn, we blow the trumpet, or say the trumpet, for the new moon.
Mm-hmm.
In the time appointed. And in the time appointed, that's each month we have the new moon, right?
Right.
And our solemn feast day is like, I'm gonna use the word holiday, I'm gonna use the word feast day.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 4, but this was a statute for Israel. It was this for us, the 12 tribes of Israel, to have this on a feast day, and the law of God of Jacob. So God gave it to Jacob. So during this time, Jacob was like Moses, so now Jacob here. So that's something that Jacob had once a month, the new moon, that he did with the Israelites. But why would you have something like that?
Right. Now, when it says Jacob here, it's just it's talking about everybody in the nation.
Didn't say Israel.
Right. Then you just mentioned Jacob, the individual. He's the person that started us, the 12 tribes. Because at one point it was just a family, right? But then that
Jacob, say that again.
Right. Jacob and Israel, we know they're the same, right?
Right.
But now remember, Jacob, he was a man, but then he had 12 sons who then had sons and daughters who became a nation.
The 12 tribes of Israel.
Like you
May I
said.
ask a question? Back
Sure.
in Moses' time on the Mount Sinai, was that the 12 tribes of Israel too?
Yeah. We had become a lot larger at that point.
Oh yeah, we have babies.
That was about 400 years after.
Oh, okay, all right. So was it a new moon then? Were they doing a new moon back there with Moses?
They started to when you read in after we came out into the wilderness. That's what Numbers 10 and 10 was talking about.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because Numbers was during the time when we came out of Egypt.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that, Pastor?
Mm-hmm.
That answered your question, right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if he got it though. He smiled.
To what?
Tawad. What Tawad means, like?
Good.
Good. Right there, Tawad. How you spell that? T-A-W?
Mm-hmm.
Tawad.
T-A-W-A-B.
A-B. Tawad means
Good.
good.
Kind of next one, and
What's up, bro?
Gabar, you can read this one. Baba Kushar, or please.
Is that me?
Gabar.
Oh, good boy.
Ezekiel 46, verses 1 to 3.
46, 1 and 3.
Mm-hmm. And if you read it, if you could give us the sense, that would be Tuab too.
I like this part. I'm getting it. You're doing good. At least you're getting it right. 1 and 3. All right.
Ezekiel 46.
Verse 1 and 3. That's right over there.
Also, in the two verses that we read,
Mm-hmm.
you see that they mention solemn feast day, and then your solemn days, and also in the day of your gladness, your feast days.
Right.
So there's distinction in those days.
Like
So when
every
it says
day,
solemn feast, we should blow the trumpet. So solemn means something day that is important.
Every
All
day.
the days are important. Those days that we blow the trumpet.
Every day.
But when you read the Sabbath is not a feast day.
That's
Right?
okay.
Because there's no celebration and there's no fire being kindled. And it is not our day, it's the Most High's day.
The Most High.
Okay. So Friday is good.
But we in all those days we blow the trumpet. That's why it says solemn feast days and the day of your gladness. So they put that's why it says each one of them so that we know. But when it says solemn day, meaning those days are important days. So the Sabbath is important, the moon is important. So in all those days we blow the trumpet.
Right.
So that would be Numbers 15 and Psalm 83, 3 and 4.
Right.
Okay, now,
81, 3 and 4.
3 and 4. So blowing the trumpet every day is that's cool, isn't it? That's all right.
You can blow the trumpet whenever. It's just the Most High has us do it for Him on these days.
On these days. Now,
Right.
let's say you at your house, can you come outside on your horn, on your porch and blow your horn?
At the right time.
Whenever you want to do it.
He said yeah, you said no. Oh,
Yeah, just take wisdom into account because
yeah, most definitely.
You have neighbors.
That's how I use the book real fast. That's how I go there every day.
You have neighbors and just
Yeah.
be mindful
Oh, yeah,
that
right. They cool.
you don't cause some kind of ruckus. Because we're in captivity, they might call authorities on it.
What, next door to you?
Okay, well, you're slowly working.
You got some new neighbors there?
Yeah, we gotta go meet.
Okay.
All right, y'all ready?
So when you do it, it's something you want to be mindful of. Before you read that, since you asked that question,
Good. I want to know.
read Proverbs 27. Just as an example.
Okay.
Proverbs 27 and verse 14, since you asked that.
Who's gonna read that? I'm gonna read that.
He's going to read it because it's his question.
Stay right where you at.
27 and 14.
Yeah.
I haven't had to read this one in a while.
27, 14. 26, 27, 14. And it says, he that bless his friends with a loud voice, raised early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. So I guess you shouldn't do that. See, that's why I asked that question.
That was a good question.
Okay? What I asked him, we gonna have something to go with it. So you should get up every morning, blowing his horn. Hey, come on, man, what you doing? Okay.
Waking me up.
Waking me up. It's time to go to work.
Guess the calculated thing.
Okay, thank you, Navia.
You're welcome. Just some wisdom to
That's my buddy here. That's why I asked.
go with that.
Now, one more question with that.
Okay.
On a feast day, like today.
The Most High requires it.
Okay.
That's why we did it.
So I can fight in the courtroom with it right here. Your Honor, your black book you got when you turn up. Numbers 10, Psalm 81, 3 and 4.
We're talking about the Most High's court.
Yeah.
Not man's court.
You can't go in there.
Okay. They get upset. Because he blowing his horn on certain days. He called the cops on me. I said, I can blow this on this day here. Because it's said that I can blow this
They'll
horn.
take you right out.
All right? So hey, that's all. Okay, say to me, why do you do this? I can show them why I'm doing this. Now, every day, and I can take them to this verse right here. Good verse you pulled up there, bro. Psalm 27, 14. I can't do that every day, but I can do it on the feast days of God. Ain't that the word for choir? On the feast day of God, I can blow. So now I know I can't do that every day. But I can play my guitar every day. And shoot the gun every day. That's cool. We used to hear those noises. Go ahead, brother, man, read.
Okay. Ezekiel 46, 1 to 3, right?
Yes.
Hold up.
Yes, sir. Hey, hold on, y'all.
Here we go. Okay, Ezekiel 46, 1 to 3. Thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the posts of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth. But the gate shall not be shut until the evening. Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbath and in the new moons. That brings up another question. Oh, wait. So that's the only time that gate gonna be open? It's not gonna be open on the Passover and all that other stuff?
No, it's just saying that it would be open on these times.
No, no.
It's not saying it's only going to be open on these times. It's just saying that you want to make sure that it's open on this time.
On these high holy days.
All right, the first one. Thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days. On the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. So that's pretty straightforward about when this gate should be open. It's going to be shut 6 working days, but every Sabbath it'll be open. And it also says the new moon it shall be open. Don't say on all your solemn days. You're saying that don't mean that. You're saying that don't mean they don't supposed to be open on the Passover. But
that's not what this verse is talking about.
What's that?
That's not what this verse is talking about.
Okay, I'll read on. It says, and the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate. All right, that particular part seemed like the prince was coming in that gate by himself. And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering. And the priest shall prepare the offerings for him. And he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. So I guess at the entrance of the gate, that's where he's going to worship. Then he shall go forth. So he left. But the gate shall not be shut until the evening. Okay, so he's going to shut the gate at sundown. Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Lord and the Sabbath and in the new moon. So they're going to do the same thing. They're going to worship at the the entrance of the gate too. On the Sabbath days and the new moons.
Done.
And that's
to what?
Okay. Yes.
Just a good thing to think about too. I know we were talking about it in the classes not too long ago about the Judges Code, which we know if the Swordsman's Code deals with things said. We went into the Swordsman's Code as far as key principles always used in teaching. When it comes to action that we take in righteousness, that's where the Judges Code comes in. Where we talked about certain parables where Christ hones in on certain things, those key questions that we've heard coming up. Like if we had like a school, we had certain projects, or when we first started learning words, you learned about the 5 W's, right? And the 1 H. Remember we talked about that?
What, when, where, who, why.
And then there's 1 H, but then there's technically 3 H's if you want to get specific. The H is what? Right. And if you want to get into
what's the other H word? How? Right.
So then you could add on 2 more, especially if you're doing something like what do you call it? Weights and measures. How many, how much? Because we always talk about that as it pertains to the law, right? So these are things that we want to question when we just deal with anything, right? When it comes to counsel in general of different subject matter. But it's a good thing to do too, even when you look at a certain verse, when you study the verses, you want to answer those that are appropriate, right? Like as you read the verses, when we break them down, think, okay, who's saying this? What's being said? Where is this taking place? When is this taking place? Why is it taking place, right?
I just say
How is it happening, right? And if it, if it fits, how many, how much, if it's appropriate. Let's say always to answer all those 5, but just the ones that are appropriate, depending on what's being said, you can deal with the verse and understand it as far as what's going down, as far as the situation. Like I said, you can apply that model to other things too. Like I said, as we touched on in the previous classes, certain parables of Christ hone in on those questions: who, what, where, when, as we read in previous classes. So just use that as you go through verses as a way to understand fully what the verse is saying.
Are we going to verse 17 to 19?
No, I just wanted him to read that.
Okay, this is all about the moon. I mean, that's the blue moon. Blue moon. All right.
So now from here, let's go to Colossians 2. Colossians chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. And be quiet. You can get the sense on that one, Bubba, for sure. Once everybody has it, we'd appreciate it.
Say again, Colossians.
Colossians 2, 16 and 17.
Colossians 2, verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath day. Let no man therefore judge you in meat. In beef.
Meat.
Eat. It's just talk about eating.
Right. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink. So when we come together in any of the feast days, we normally bring food to eat, right?
Right.
So when we bring food to eat, it's normally in the feast days we come together and gather together.
Right.
So when we come in those days and gather together to break bread, let nobody come in between and say, what is this that you're doing? What kind of feast are you keeping? You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be keeping those feast days.
Right.
And then he went to tell you specifically, he says holy day, and it says or the new moon or the Sabbath day. So when you come to keep this feast, or you come to keep those solemn days, those important days, do not let anyone deter you from doing what you're doing. And the verse that follows will tell you why. It says, which are a shadow of things to come. It's like when you look at yourself in the mirror, or you look at it's like you look at a shadow of yourself. It's a duplicate of you. But it's not if you go in the mirror, you cannot touch it. You cannot touch yourself, but you can see the reflection. Right? So what we do it is a reflection of the real thing that's coming. In the real thing, it says, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the similitude in the mirror, but the physical thing that we will see, it will be revealed when Yahushua comes.
Okay.
Right? It's a shadow of things to come. Just like I said, if you look at yourself in the mirror, you cannot touch it because it is a reflection, it is a shadow.
Yeah.
But the real you is the person.
Right.
But what we're doing is a reflection of Christ, who's the real thing.
Really.
So what we keep it in the feast is in reference to Yahweh Shai.
Okay.
So Yahweh Shai is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, that's that right? It says, but the body is of Christ.
Right.
And it's important as you read that, as it ties to what Gabar read, because a when you can look at for Ezekiel, when you read in the previous that chapter of Ezekiel, it's talking about what's going to be instituted in the kingdom going forward, as Ezekiel had that vision.
Mm-hmm.
This here is dealing with the future too,
Mm-hmm.
in the kingdom with Yahweh Shai, right? Like he tells in his prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be on earth as it is in heaven."
Mm-hmm.
You know, Christ is going to reign with us. So these things are to come, and they're going to be widespread, as opposed to just us doing them. Those of us who've been called into this truth, whereas the rest of the world is still doing foolishness. So keep that in mind as well when you read this and other scriptures like it. Guns. So, like I was saying earlier, just wanted to review this. When we talk about power in reality, and as the scriptures outline it, because when you read the story about Jacob, like you read earlier in Psalms 81, it calls him Israel, it also calls him Jacob. You read the story in Genesis when what? Jacob wrestled with the angel, right? And then he asked the angel for a blessing, right? After prevailing. He said, "You shall be no more called Jacob, but Israel, because as a prince thou hast had power with God and with men and has prevailed." Right? So princes and princesses of power is who we are. Like we see that banner up there, Yashar Allah. Literally means he is a prince of power, right? So when we talk about power, right? Or what gives us power, gives us dominion, it's important that we understand it to where we can see it in the scriptures as far as the past, see it as it pertains to the present, as far as current prophecies, and also the future that's to come. Like I said, some of it's should already be obvious, but we want to be able just to understand it so that when we see current events, hear about different matters on the earth, we can really look at power and go, okay, who has power over what, right? Even if they say one thing, we can look at it honestly and clearly and go, okay, now that I understand power and its levels, I can determine who has power and who doesn't. Even if we hear words that don't say, or words that may confuse the issue. So, just write this in your notes. 4 levels of power. And then after we go into different verses, reach these levels, I'll show a place in the scriptures where they're actually referenced together for a certain reason. Just say come once you have that.
Where we supposed to be getting 4 levels of power?
Write that in your notes.
What?
4 levels of power.
So I'm going to outline what each one is and have verses for each one.
4 levels of power.
Yeah. So let's go with the new moon.
No, this is something different.
4 levels of power.
This is something that you studied. Sir, this is something that you studied.
Yeah. Before, it's gone through this a while ago. I'm just reviewing it.
This don't have nothing to do with the new moon?
No,
Okay,
it's connected because it's dealing with,
okay, that's fine. Okay. Just want to know.
so everybody has that?
Yeah, some level of power.
That's what I was just saying too, but before you get to it.
So first level is world currencies. World currencies.
Spell currency.
CURRENCIES.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No, not currency, currencies, like plural.
Right.
Like more than one.
Mm-hmm.
First one is world currency.
Or what you may hear or refer to as just money in general. But you see different currencies out there, whether it was back then or now, like dollars, pounds, euros, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So a verse you can write for that one is Ecclesiastes.
The second one,
Ecclesiastes chapter 10.
Wait a minute, do this go with the first one?
Yep.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 19.
So let's go to that.
You can just write it down. I'll read the verses.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you say about Ecclesiastes? What now?
Chapter 10 and verse 19.
No.
So Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 19, it reads, a feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. So not so much the first two precepts, which they have their use. A feast being made for laughter, wine maketh merry, right? Dealing with the drinking wine, but the understanding, of course, not over drinking wine. But I'm really honing in on the last precept, which is money answereth all things. And the context where Solomon is saying it, he's saying how money has a use, right? It has its glory. But once again, like anything created, money notwithstanding, the love of it can cause what? Lead you to evil, as opposed to just using it.
Right, depending on how you use it.
Mm-hmm. You can also write down, this is also in Ecclesiastes 2, chapter 7, verses 11 and 12. Chapter 7, verse 11 and 12 as well.
Ecclesiastes,
Chapter 7, verses 11 and 12.
okay.
This is number 2?
This is still number 1.
Okay.
I'll tell you number 2. Don't worry.
Ecclesiastes chapter 7, 11 and 12. So Ecclesiastes.
Okay.
Which reads, Ecclesiastes 7:11. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. So a lot here dealing with wisdom in particular, but I'm honing in mainly on money being used as a defense.
As a what?
Defense. All right, now there are others, but those are just key ones.
Wisdom is the defense.
Oh, money, write down money as a defense. That's why we're quoting this.
Not wisdom.
No, that's two. We're quoting this because we're talking about world currency.
Money,
Wisdom is
wisdom.
behind everything. I'm quoting this specifically as it pertains to money or world currency.
Money and wisdom is what?
A defense. That's what I wrote in my book. I understand what he said.
Just so when you go back over it, you know why we
Right.
quoted it.
And I want to say, money and wisdom is a defense. Because you got to be smart enough.
So the second level
It's number two.
is the second level of power now.
Yeah,
Second level.
it's second level. Yeah. I have a question.
Is it pertaining to this or is
Y'all,
it? Okay. What is it?
can I bring stuff in here like this and give to y'all?
Stuff like what?
Like this stuff right here. See how this right here, world currency?
Like
So
as
this
a
is my book I can bring out.
like as an offering?
I'm offering to y'all.
We have the tithe box right
I'm
here.
talking about out this book right here. See
You're
how
not talking about giving us no money though, right?
No, I ain't talking about that yet. I'm talking about out of here. He giving us some money. He giving us words out of his mouth, out of this
You
book.
just want to give us some. You're not-
Oh, hell, I mean, heck yeah.
He thought you was talking about giving us some.
No, not yet.
That's what the class is for. It's all
Okay,
about
good.
bringing information and measuring against the scriptures.
Okay, okay. If you ain't gonna come right out the Bible. All right,
As long as it's rightly divided, we can address it. We can deal with it.
it's gonna come right out this book right here.
So number two, precious metals and resources
You gave me this before.
both living and non-living.
Stop. Precious metal.
Taking on the precious metal.
And resources, both living and non-living.
Precious. P-R-E.
CIOUS.
Resource and
Both living and non-living.
Precious metal. You say double precious metal and what?
Resources. You can write down Genesis chapter 13. In verse 2.
I've been here before. He gave me this before. That's why I just said I'm gonna take the second one. Should have graduated from college. But I was charged.
Also, you can write down Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 3.
Mhm. Yes.
And also Revelation
What right there?
chapter 18 and verse 12.
You say Zechariah what now?
Chapter 9 and verse 3. and Revelation 18 and 12.
Chapter 9, verse 3. What's the other one?
Revelation 18 and 12. So this is like some of you have already read, gold, silver, different metals, right? Used for different things. When I say living, I'm also talking about like plants and animals too. Even though we can say the Most High Spirit is in all things, when we think about minerals, you typically don't call them living, even though the Most High Spirit is in all things that it created. So these are the things that the first level of money can buy, right? Sometimes certain forms of money are actually, you could say, they're considered resources. But all resources aren't, while money is a resource, all resources wouldn't be considered money per se. But you can use resources to create money, whether it be a paper form of money or a metal form of money, or however you want to use to exchange. So Genesis 13 and 2, and Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and gold. So speaking on the resources that he had. Zechariah 9 and 3. And Tyrus or Tyre, just spelled differently, did build herself up a stronghold and heaped up silver as the dust and fine gold as the mire of the streets. You know, Tyre, you go into the history of Tyre, it was a trade city in the northern region of Israel, slightly above it. And then Revelation 18 and 12, which we're going to come back to this when we get to the fourth level, that's going into a vision that John had about Babylon the Great, which is what we call America today, and all things that were traded in Babylon. And you see that these precious resources are listed here, some of them. Revelation 18 and 12, it says, the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen, and purple, and silk and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble. Yeah.
We've been here before, verse 13, even got us in here.
I'm gonna get to that, but we're not to that level yet. That's what I was just saying.
You're on the second level, now you're on the third level.
To the second level. I don't know if we've been.
That's what I said earlier. I said we're gonna get to verse 13 when we get to the fourth level.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the third level.
Third level.
Verse 12, P-R-E-C-I-O-U-S.
Third level is land, sea, and air. So these are the things that a person or people would have that the resources would come from, right? The money coming from those resources. Like we see from back then up until now, people having certain land or fighting to get certain land, in some cases justly gotten, in most cases unjustly gotten, because a certain land or a certain waterway, river, or sea has certain resources in it, right? Well, like they say, no fly zone. This
Right.
airspace belongs
Fly
to
around here, they
us.
shoot you down.
So land, sea, and air. And in verses you can write for that one.
They made a game of
Good.
that called Battleship. Still live.
You can write down Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26.
Man.
Mm.
122. Can't beat that man. Just leave man out.
Right, where we see in that verse the Most High making Adam, a certain man, Adam, to have dominion over not only the resources, but the land itself, right? Because we know the land and the sea would yield these living things like plants, animals, fishes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you read, animals came out of the dirt, out of the dust of the ground, right? The creeping thing. And the fish and the birds, they came out of the sea. Right? The Most High made them out of the sea when you read above in Genesis.
Here, would you back up a little bit? Where animals come from? Out of the where? Like the ones on the land. Where they come from out of?
The dust of the earth.
Hmm. Now I know Adam came from God, but I never read that when the animals came out of the dirt.
Yeah, it's you read it above in Genesis chapter 1.
They came from out of the dirt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will.
So along with Genesis 1 and 26, you can also write down Judith in the Apocrypha chapter 2 in verse 7. Which this is interesting here too, because you've seen this, they actually made a reference to this in that movie 300. But it was something that what was done where different nations that had dominion, they would go to others, right? The Babylonians and the Persians, and then have them demand an offering of earth and water.
Say that again out of here.
I said, when you read Judith 2 and 7, you see a Nebuchadnezzar doing it, but you saw it in that movie 300 too. It was where you see the Persians taking on that same characteristic too. When they would come to a nation that they had dominion over, they would demand an offering of earth and water, or wood and water. Because what that was supposed to signify was that what? The said nation that was in power, right, had command over the earth and the sea. They had that power. So you see it there being done in Judith chapter 2 and verse 7. So it's historical, but then, like I said, if you see it in a movie and don't really know the historical context, you may just say, okay, what's that all about? Why is he asking Leonidas, the king of the Spartans, why is he asking him for earth and water? Even in today's time, since we know with Esau, he set his nest among the stars, right? He's the eagle. So with his the power that he exerts, we see even with his military, he has the Navy SEALs. And you say, why does he call them the SEALs? Because the SEAL is supposed to be an acronym, it's supposed to be 3 words in one. It's supposed to represent sea, air, and land. What they're trying to say is they have power over the sea, over the air, and over the land. Hence, SEALs.
Oh, that's abbreviation. E A for air and land. What about the E? The south.
It's the word sea, and you have the A in the sea, which is stands for air, and then the L, which stands for land.
Okay, that's the A means sea. I mean air.
Just Esau, like I said, since it's his time to rule, him showing he has power over all 3.
So SE means C. SE is C?
They just did it that way so they could say it in one word, SEALs.
No.
It's not that technical. It's just You can look this up on your own, but that's why they call them that.
Air.
'Cause if you probably look and you say a seal, what the hell does the military have to do with seals in the water? That's where it comes from.
Air. Right there.
So that's the third level of power, right?
All right.
Land, sea, and air.
I just wrote it down too. C, S-C-E is for the sea, A is for the air, L is for the land.
So the fourth level,
Stop. Fourth level,
we're all together?
here you
What's the third
go.
one?
I'll give it to you.
Okay. So what is it called?
Oh, you got that.
Fourth level.
So the fourth level is souls of men. Really, you could just say manpower, but we say souls of men because we understand what makes a man is a soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like they said, Jacob and the 70 souls. It's talking about the 70 people, right? So now we got people power. Like they say in the world, top resource is the human resource, right? They have human resources department, right?
Who said organs? Who-
So fourth level is souls of men, people, or like we would say people power. And the people, when we say the souls too, we're also talking about having the influence over them, right? Meaning you have people that are part of your citizenry that are working in different jobs, right? Different professions
Yeah.
to make your society. And if you're big enough within that, you'll have a standing army, right? To boast and say, yeah, we have this many people in our army, right? If we need to invade or to defend ourselves, defend our land, defend our sea, defend our resources, defend our money. So each level builds on top of the other.
Get better each time.
So as for a smaller group or a smaller nation, you might have to have the people, the regular citizenry, double up as defenders, right? We read about like smaller rebellions. They'll say, put a gun or a sword in every man, woman, and child's hand, right? Until we can defend what we have and then build ourselves bigger, right? So verse you can write for the fourth level, 2 Peter 2 Peter chapter 2 in verse 3, which I think we just talked about this, right? In Samak's class last Friday. You know, reading about leaving their first, the angels left their first estate. Remember above that? It says how they'll make merchandise of you. Going into people actually being commodities, right?
Remember that word, commodities. Merchant, that's the root. Like a slave. Yeah, like a slave. I don't know, let's see here. Yeah, we did this verse right here with Shema.
This more so focusing on what the one above.
Yeah, I know. I'm always one up and one down from what y'all read.
So another verse you can write,
Come on with your can, man. You hear that? In?
You look at fifth level now?
This 4.
He said, hey,
Read.
wow.
You guys are funny. You brothers are
Well,
funny.
okay, man. What you
I
done
don't
did? He
know.
on you, though. He done did something.
What's up with you, man?
He want to say something to you.
You always got a funny spot.
He left you, man. Glad y'all know each other. Y'all buddies and stuff. Put my money in it. Like that though, man. Oh, you won't leave. Okay. He gonna feel power. All right.
Also, you can write down 1 Kings chapter 21.
Coach King. Thank you, bro. Thank you, bro. I was telling her that. You did it.
1 Kings verse 21 and verse 20.
Oh,
Next one.
21.
Okay, there we go.
Right.
No, thank you. What?
Is that a problem? Oh, that's what I was. He didn't say the wrong. Okay.
And then Revelation 18 and 13.
Revelation 18:13.
Right. The one we're waiting for. So I'll read these. 1 Kings 21 and 20. It says, and Ahab said to Elijah, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee because thou hast sold thyself, it's sell out, right? To work evil in the sight of the Lord or Yahweh.
15, 20, and 20.
21 and 20.
21.
You don't want to be sold to do mischief. Anything like the scripture says in Proverbs, you want to buy the truth and sell it not. Like Proverbs also says, he that keepeth the commandments keepeth his own soul.
Right.
Right? So that's how you have your soul for the Most High's righteous army, not just to be influenced by, whoever the commander is or the leader of the group
Right.
that's in charge, like you have for most nations. And then in Revelation, let me read 2 Peter 2 and 3 real quick.
Last in Revelation.
18 and 13. So 2 Peter 2 and 3, as y'all read recently, it says, and through covetousness, they shall with vain words or fake words, right? Feigning is like faking, right? Make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. It's now being misled, as people sometimes can be. You're not doubting anymore?
I was out to the charge.
Oh.
Somebody came in. I dropped off.
Get him before
So Revelation 18 and 13, 18 and 13,
Okay.
it reads, in cinnamon and odors and ointments, and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat, and beasts and sheep and horses. So still precious metals and resources. But then it says, in chariots, same thing. But then it says, and slaves and souls of men. See that?
Yeah,
It's not going into people power now, right? That a country can have dominion over, or people can have dominion over.
Right.
Also, it's important to make a distinction when we say soul. Some of the aspect of souls of men can be sold, but the ultimate soul of men cannot be sold, because nobody can do anything with your soul. Your ultimate soul, your spiritual soul, can nobody do anything with it.
Right.
Only the Most High.
Right.
Because that's why sometimes it's good to differentiate between different level of your soul. So the ultimate level aspect of your soul cannot be tempered.
Right.
That's like when you go to jail, you're supposed to stay with God. You don't supposed to join that group over there. So they won't do things to you. Unless you call us, we can protect you. But if you don't, bro, you left by yourself. Well, bro, I got a Bible right here. I'm gonna have to go all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. I understand exactly what he just said. Is that close to what you talking about? Ain't close. That's what you're talking about, right?
Right,
Me or him?
Oh, him and you know, you read it. He was.
let me read the scripture real fast.
Because he's actually going to the internal
Yeah,
part.
I was the internal.
I'm just dealing with the external right now, but he's kind of going to the next level.
I got reason with the Bible.
Because when somebody said, you sell your soul to
There
the
you go.
devil,
Uh-huh.
There you go.
the aspect of your soul is you give it up. Right? Like your mind control, people can mind control you, make you do something, but your ultimate
Like
soul,
right?
nobody can mess with.
Somebody messed with
There you go.
1 Corinthians 2:11.
Let me get it. Let me get it. First Corinthians. Okay, hold on. That's a good one right there.
Yeah, this is actually another system I have dealing with the internal level.
Ben gave me this. 11.
First Corinthians.
2:11.
Yes,
So I don't want to confuse
right,
what
I
I'm
just
talking
don't
about.
want
And
the brothers to think that their soul can be so. We talking like in general, soul, and this is it. But the ultimate soul that the Most High control, nobody can mess with it.
Right.
Only the Most High got control over that. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, when you say 2:11 or 1:11?
2. 1 Corinthians 2:11.
Okay,
2:11.
Gotcha. Come on, bro.
1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11 reads, "For what man knoweth the thing of a man, save the spirit of men which is in him? Even so the thing of God knoweth no man but the Spirit of God."
Amen. Amen.
Because somebody may try to manipulate you, but you have something in your mind you can never read. You can never know.
Right.
Only the Most High has the ultimate power to control all of that.
Right.
Good one right there.
come. So I referenced the verses, but you can just write these down to go with the fourth level.
Right.
You just did it.
Now, I referred to them, but I didn't quote the verses in Proverbs about buying the truth and selling it not.
Oh, okay.
When we talk about what makes us as far as it being, power or commodity, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Because amongst the Elohim, the soul of a man or a woman who it belongs to, that's of the highest importance. But for a man or woman who's ignorant, they may not see it as such. Or they do in their real life. And they know that's what matters most. Because a lot of folks talk about, oh, so-and-so sold out, but don't realize that they already sold out to begin with. Like Bakwa brought out, everything belongs to the Most High.
Right.
But as far as the pecking order, their soul is on the left-hand side under Satan. He's already got you. Or you went to, Hollywood or whatever industry, and, as they have these different traditions, signing in blood, and you hear these different videos bringing this stuff out, but they don't realize you weren't keeping the commandments initially. You didn't have your soul. You were already Satan's property.
Right.
You weren't, as the group is, the group says, God's property.
Right.
Kirk Franklin. They're teaching the doctrine themselves. So yeah, Proverbs 23 and 23. That's the one I quoted.
Hold on.
You can just write it down. Proverbs 23 and verse 23. Which reads, buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. So top investment.
Yeah.
And now here's how you keep your soul to begin with. You're not doing this, you never had it.
All right. Yeah. That's good right there, Navia. Buy the truth.
And this goes with it. Proverbs 19 and 16. Mm-hmm. Put your phones on a vibrator mute, Baba Krishan. Proverbs 19 and 16. Just turn the volume down on it. It says, he that keepeth the commandment keepeth his own soul. And he that despiseth his ways shall die. Right? So if you weren't keeping the commandments, you can't sell what was already sold. Because like we read earlier in 1 Kings 21 and 20, if you were sold to do mischief by not keeping the commandments, you are already under Satan's authority. This kind of goes to what we were talking about, the other milk topics, as far as being born again and what that means, being baptized, what that means, you know. You have to have the commandments in tow to do that. That's how you keep yourself. That's how you don't lose yourself, as they say.
Okay.
And then another one you can tag on too.
Wow.
This more so dealing with the internal.
It's Proverbs 19 and 16.
Right.
Oh, you got some more. It's good though.
This deals more with the internal side of things, similar to the one that Acquired pulled. This talking about when we say in the world, they say mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. So this is 1 Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. First Thessalonians chapter 5 in verse 23.
1 Thessalonians 25 and 23.
No. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 in verse 23. Unless you got 3rd and 4th Thessalonians, you got some extra letters of Paul. And if you do, you gotta look at those things a little closer. Make sure you don't have some doctrines on it.
Yeah,
So 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 23, it reads, this is your, as they say, holistic health, right? Healthy from inside out, right? From physical to your mind, which you could say is like the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, all the way to your spirit, or the spirit that you're in. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 23, it says, and the very God of peace sanctify you wholly, meaning entirely. Sanctify meaning what? Like we talked about before, cleanse, right? When we went through the baptism class. The very God of peace sanctify you wholly, and I pray God your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord, or Adawan, Yahweh Shah Mashiach. See that? The desire is that, yes, from the inside out, you have power. You could say our fight for Israel is from the inside out, whereas with Esau, he appeals to you from the outside in. Esau, he'll defile himself, right?
Don't care.
Get the money, get the resources, get the land, right? Manipulate people. And then after he conquers the people and misleads them, right? Then he'll decide, oh, let me get spiritual now. Let me meditate. Let me get on the higher level. It's like it's too late. You've already defiled yourself. Whereas the Most High, he's making sure for us so that we're fit for the kingdom, that we understand the value of our soul first and foremost. And once we learn that and learn what it means to keep that, which is where the fruits of the Spirit come in the commandments, those character traits, right, that make us more Christ-like. Once he sees that, okay, we see the importance of faith, patience, experience, brotherly kindness, charity, right, joy, all those other fruits of the Spirit. Once he sees we're mature enough in that, then it's like, okay, now I can trust this man or woman of Israel with some physical stuff now. Whereas with the heathen, you let them get all the physical stuff and let them squander the spiritual until they've gotten so far, they're so far gone on physical wealth and riches, they can't even deal with those other factors or even deal with them properly. So yeah, lose your levels of power. And I know it's getting late, so what I'll do is just read this in Genesis, where we can see these things outlined.
Wait, what you want, level 5?
No. I'm going to show these referred to together, because during the time when the Egyptians had the famine, we see that the people needed the base need. Their base need was food. They needed food to survive. And the Most High spoke to Joseph before the famine came and says, store up a whole bunch of corn so that you can nourish Egypt and all the countries around when this famine comes. Okay. Because he knew that will be, what do you call it? Not a trigger. What's the word I want? I guess I'll say trigger, but that'll be the thing that would bring his brothers to Egypt. The famine.
And when they say corn, you meant not just plain corn, you meant food and everything. Like it was just general statement.
Yeah. I mean, corn was, a popular staple that they did eat, though, and that they did grow.
But it wasn't, it meant food, every type of food, not just corn. That was just being used.
You could use it to eat, you could use it to make bread, you could use it to make different things. You could break it down and make meal out of it.
Yeah, you're right.
It has many uses. What they call them, the three sisters, I think in certain cultures, they have, what is it called? The three sisters? It's like squash. It's like corn, squash, and like one other thing. I think it's peas. But they say like with those three things, you can like build a society as far as like just having those three staple crops. One second, I'll look it up. They're like sustenance crops.
Let's go power verse 4. What you about to give us?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Corn, beans, and squash.
There we go.
Native Americans always interplanted this trio because they thrived together, much like three inseparable sisters. By the time the European settlers arrived in America, the Iroquois had been growing the three sisters for over 3 centuries, maybe even longer than that. But anyway, this is Genesis 47. So check this out. That's what the people did because they had to eat. You know,
we got it enough, right?
If you don't have food, what do you have? You don't have anything. So Genesis 47, I'll start from 13.
47:13.
You can read all the way down to 20, right down to 26, but I'm only gonna read the top part though. Genesis 47 and 13. It says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine, as the Most High predicted and showed Moses, Joseph, as far as that dream that those guys had, right? And he was able to predict it. 14, and Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. So with the money that Egyptians were using, they used that to buy the food so that they can eat because of the famine, right? He couldn't grow it, so he had to eat the reserves that he had already stacked up in these different pits. There's a, I'll show you guys maybe doing, after we get done. There's this video going into, they think they may have found the actual pit that he used, that he filled up with corn. It says in 15, and when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence, for the money faileth? So this is interesting because we see in today, right, when they run out of money, they'll print more, as opposed to saying, okay, there's just no more money, because they were dealing with productivity growth. They weren't dealing with inflation. They said, look, you can't just print money unless you have real worker effort behind it. So the money ran out. You need something else that actually has value that you can use. But Joseph knew that. So what's the alternative? It says in verse 16, and Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. So we went from world currencies, right, to precious metals and resources, right? In this case, living resources, cattle. So use those now to get food.
Big stuff.
Well,
Back then,
It was built.
but today, I mean, you bring in trade places, and emergency room, they make the pig get paid. They're making money off the pig.
Well, all types of cattle. Verse 17.
But the pig is over.
And they brought their cattle unto Joseph. Well, I think it would probably have been more of clean ones, right? Remember, even during Noah's time, they brought the clean animals in by 7 and unclean by 2. That's mainly what? Cows, sheep, goats. Probably those more so. It says, and they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. Now it's going into specifics, since you were wondering. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. So they used that as a means of exchange. And when the year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. See that? Now we're dealing with the third and fourth level of power. Land, sea, and air, and also souls of men, or bodies, like you said, slaves, right? Their own bodies now being used as collateral. 19, wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt even to the other end thereof. So now they all become property of Egypt, so that they can get bread in exchange and seed to eat. They're your levels of power there, just in one story, and one being tapped after the other. So we always want to be mindful of everything that the Most High made and its glory and its value, compare one to the other.
Right.
It's not to say forget about one, only focus on the other. No, each one has its glory, has its purpose. One is not to supersede the other. We need to understand the roles that all these things play. And by things written aforetime, by reading those things, understanding, we can make sense of that as far as choices that were made before them, and also make sense of it as far as the choices that are made now, whether or not they're going to work out or not in the end. Even with all the advances in technology, all the knowledge that we see out today, we still see that the kings of the earth lack wisdom. It's becoming their undoing, even with concepts like this.
So, the animals that we just was reading about, all of them right now are in stock. People are making money off them. Right now, today.
Yeah, the commodities market.
Horses, cattle, pigs, whatever animal is. Who? Sheep, all that.
So you can read all the way down to 26, but I'm just going to stop at 21 for what we want.
I got 31. I was at the end.
And then we'll make an end here.
No, Fonzo did.
But yeah, 13 to 26 is just the main section dealing with what they traded for food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, you read down, it even goes into even the priests pertaining to the Pharaoh, how he didn't sell their land. Almost like something of like not exactly the same when it came to our priests, of course, but like a precursor or his understanding of the role that the priest, the direct connect to the higher power, that they need to be a special case or they need to be treated a certain way. So we see that wisdom coming out even here during this time. Way before we even had our own priests in Israel, we were still just a family.
You read the 31, you get what my man told him to take him out of Israel. Out of Egypt. Don't bury me here.
And also keep in mind,
Mm-hmm.
this is dealing with the world system.
Right, yeah, that's what I said. They have stock.
This is dealing with world system.
Right.
Because when you look at the world system, the Mossad is showing us different resources that the world used in the world system confine himself in.
Right.
And they think it's the ultimate.
True.
While the Mossad created these things for us to use, we should not confine ourselves to these material things too much to the point where we forget that the Mossad is the one that we should always, look up to.
Right.
Because what's going to happen, we see from system that they created, democracy, socialism, communists, all these systems fail.
Right.
Regardless of how much resources they have, all these systems fail.
The guys still go. But got the stock market over his animals that he made.
Right. All world systems fail.
I just need Rodney to tell me. So we finish this one. So I can see what they made. I know the guy creating man.
You want to say more on that, or was that it?
Right. So, for example, when we went into the feast with Esther and the king,
Yeah.
the Mossad went to the story went to a great length to show you the greatness, the material stuff that the man possessed, right? Compared to here, we have 50 states, right?
Right.
This man had 120 some provinces, like 120 states.
Okay.
Right, so in all the riches and everything that he had, and the resources, everything he had at his disposal, right? Those are the things that the world system pride himself in, those riches. Granted, the Mossad created them, right, but not for us to confine ourselves in. But the world system, that's what they pretty much put out there in the pedestal. So that's why we gotta be very mindful to know that no matter how much work with resources we have, we will never be fulfilled.
Right.
Because when we look at us, we were created to be infinite. right? Infinite being, like the Most High, right?
Right.
So what can fill us?
Yep.
Nothing that is material can fill. That's why when we get something tomorrow, we feel dissatisfied. We gotta go and get the next thing because we're looking for some satisfaction in things that will never fulfill us because we are infinite beings.
We ain't never,
On that note, if you could read that, read
we never,
Ecclesiastes 5 and 15.
we never satisfied, is that what you're saying?
We will never satisfy. That's why we should never let ourselves be slaves to anything material.
Sound like it. Yeah, you right. Okay, man. I mean, brother. Yeah, we ain't never satisfied.
And that's why you see the world system failing because even the leaders, they never satisfied.
Right.
Ecclesiastes.
So
5:15.
where we at? You got another one?
Ecclesiastes.
Just to back up what he's saying.
Ecclesiastes 5:17,
15.
5:15. All right, hold on. Come on, Bazaar.
Ecclesiastes 5.
Ecclesiastes 5:17.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us, we look up to a bunch of world leaders. We think they should be doing good.
But they're not.
They're not doing good because they just people just like you and me.
Yeah.
Who just happen to be in a position that the Most High allow them to be in that position for a specific purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
But they never satisfy. Ecclesiastes 5:15. As he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return.
No,
To go as
it's
he
not it.
came, and shall take nothing of his labor.
That's the wrong one. Try 5 and 10.
He that loveth
There
silver
it
shall
is.
not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance will increase. This is also vanity. So no matter how much you amass, how much wealth you get, you can get this, you will never be satisfied because we are not meant to be satisfied with things. But if we understand that, we can enjoy these things for what they are.
One more. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 5 and 6.
What was that? The first one you said 10 and what?
5 and 10
5 and 10.
of
Oh, 5 and
Ecclesiastes.
10?
He moved up for
Get a Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 5 and 6.
Habakkuk. How you pronounce that word?
Habakkuk.
Habakkuk.
Yeah.
H-A-B-A-K. Habakkuk. Okay. Habakkuk. Not Habakkuk.
You can read that one too.
Habakkuk. Habakkuk. Come on, what Habakkuk? Habakkuk. That's the name. And what's the title of the verse?
Oh, satisfied. Same thing. What he's talking about.
Okay, what chapter, verse?
Habakkuk 2, 5 and 6.
Habakkuk.
Habakkuk. 2:10. I got it highlighted.
You said 5 and 6.
No, that was the last one. This one here is 2:10, right?
La'ah.
Go ahead now.
No, it's the wrong one.
Okay.
I don't know.
Ecclesiastes 5 and 10.
You know, he
You still break it down, will you? There you go.
Which verse?
Habakkuk
Chapter 2, verses 5 and 6.
5 and 6.
Habakkuk is EA3.
Yea,
Okay, that's in your book. But this 806 in mine.
Habakkuk 2 and 5. Yea, also,
Wait a minute now.
because we transgress by wine, he is proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gatheth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people.
That's Esau.
Mm-hmm.
Esau or any other kingdom, their goal is to conquer, to enlarge themselves as much as they can.
All right, well,
So see that man enlarged himself, he got 120 provinces. That's go around part of Egypt all the way to Ethiopia. So he had a bunch of countries that we know now. Iran, Lebanon. He had all these regions under his control.
Mm-hmm. That's Esau.
What chapter was it?
2:5 now. I think it was 2:10, 2:5. Habakkuk 2:5.
Even with that, what happened? He fell.
Yeah.
Because men's system cannot stand. And the Most High showing us this.
I got you.
Amen.
6.
Verse 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a turning proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that leadeth himself, he says, and to him that leadeth himself with thick clay. Huh?
Right. So it's a prophecy dealing with Babylon, in particular Babylon the Great. Because remember the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw of the empires? The last one was the iron and clay feet mixed together,
That's what that statue.
which represents where we're at right now. And like people always say, Esau, you living on stolen property. How you gonna tell us what they can and can't do, right? With this land. You stole this land for Native Americans, right? That's why it says, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his.
They ain't here.
Right.
They ain't here.
What we need is us and the Most High. That's all we need.
That's true.
Makes sense.
We don't need Esau. We don't need to look at them like we don't need.
We don't need them at all.
So all we need is the Most High and ourselves.
Okay. Got that.
And that's one of our big challenge.
Right.
Did you go to 75, 78?
Right?
77.
Right.
This is one of our challenges.
Right there.
I mean, this is our challenge.
In life.
Being able to lead ourselves first. Then we can look up, because we look out there in the world today, you'll see everything that's not working. Plain view. Leadership. How you have a leader of a so-called number one in the world? He's being accused of a thief. So you see how leadership.
Yeah.
You know what?
And he's still holding on to it.
Yeah.
How about the hurricane, man? How about the hurricane with the landed down there?
Alabama.
Killed 26 people. Man, Most High, no joke.
Is that down Alabama?
Yeah.
You see, they got control of that weather thing out there.
Who?
The weather machine they got out
Who's
there.
out there?
Esau.
Oh, you don't think that?
Right.
They got
So
control of it.
Who do you think did that?
I have to look more into
Esau
it.
or God?
It's all the Most High, but whether he used Esau to do it or not, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Because he's killing up with black people now.
No,
But let me
Well, they gonna be in the
just
neighborhood.
read this and then we can close
Okay,
out. It's
good.
getting late.
Okay,
So this is Luke chapter 4, just to close out on the whole power thing. Unless someone else has another verse they want to bring out. But this is Luke chapter 4, verse 5. And I'll read down to 8. One of the temptations of Christ. And he was tempted of the third type, which is lusts. The seed that fell on the amongst the thorns. This was the temptation coming to Christ, but we see how he responds. Luke chapter 4 and verse 5, it says, and the devil taking him up to a high mountain, showing him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, all this power will I give thee. That's what we're talking about.
Right, the house.
Money, resources, land, people, right? That's what makes a kingdom, right? At those different levels, whether it's the money, the resources, the land itself.
It makes what?
It makes a kingdom. The 4 levels of power, which we were talking about.
Or the 4 level of power makes a kingdom.
A kingdom of what, though? Not of God.
Any kingdom.
Anything.
It's all about how it's used, though. It's used for righteousness or wickedness. Solomon had these things.
But he got it through God, though.
That's the difference.
This right here.
No, they all get it through the Most High, but how they use it determines whether or not they keep it or if they lose it to another nation.
Okay.
All this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, referring to those kingdoms. But that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. Showing you that Satan has power to give men the authority. But we know ultimately.
Well, he act like he owns it.
Actually, no, he doesn't.
Well, he admits that
Listen.
somebody gave it.
He says my gave it to
You see that part? Yeah.
You just
He
explained what I was going to say.
psychology on my man Jesus. I give you all this right here. Jesus. Wait,
Because
give
it
me
was
that.
given to him,
Mhm.
so therefore he trying to tell Jesus, since it was given to me, I can do whatever I want with it.
Right.
But he didn't
God
take it.
blessing Jesus.
He didn't take it on his own. That's a doctrine. You can use this verse to cut that. That Satan rebelled against God and did his own thing.
Right. Yeah.
Incorrect. Let me finish. If thou therefore wilt worship me, all shall be thine. Jesus answered and said unto him, Get thee behind me, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. This is what Bakwa was talking about. All we need is the Most High. All we need to submit ourselves to is to the Most High, and Christ himself being the key example. When we see when he was tempted, what he did, we now have a model for what we should do when tempted, just even with a fraction of what he was tempted with. Just a piece of that kingdom. We see men will bow down to Satan for much less. We know it was Satan. He had to come to Christ when he was at his weakest after that 40-day fast and offer him all the kingdoms, not just this little land here or this position in the company there or this little record deal here. He had to come with everything with him, and come at him when he was the weakest. And even still with that, Christ resisted. Christ knew this all belongs to me anyway. Even the angels, even though I'm in the flesh and I'm down and out, I know ultimately I'm only supposed to worship the Most High, and that's it.
And Yahushua could have taken it, right? You know why? Part of the reason why he didn't take it, because he's a selfless leader. He knows if he take it, we are done. So he put us before himself.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very true. He already had it.
He had it.
He already had
He
it.
made all these things.
That's just a God's
If he was like a selfish leader, he said they hell with us,
Right. He don't care about you.
right? So he put the people before his own interests, knowing that he's gonna have it
Anyway.
And the only way that we could have a chance is by him doing what he did, and he came in the
This is what he's supposed to do.
So that's a leader. The world, you cannot compare Yahushua to these leaders. So it all comes down to leading like Jesus. That's the only system that all the other systems are done.
Done. So if there's no other comments or scriptures, we're going to close out since we got 15 minutes till midnight. So any other questions or comments? To what? So we'll say a Ashar Chadash, 13th new moon. Glad we got to discuss the subject, man. Even during the new moon. And should serve as a good, like I said, a good review as we see different things going on. Nations rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. What we'll see is that it's between what? Them fighting for power one over the other. And we can understand very clearly what nation really has power over themselves based on looking at these key factors here. And then, of course, us know the truth, can ultimately acknowledge that the Most High has power over all. He's the one that raises up kingdoms and bring them down anyway. Before nations say, yes, I'm free, I'm independent, just measuring them against these levels of power, we can really figure out, oh, who's on your money? Who controls your money? Who controls your resource? Who controls your land? Because whoever that person is, or that group is, they're the ones that really have the dominion over you. And there's no faking the funk. So with that, we'll do the closing prayer. So we'll say Shark Kadash once again. Most of us will talk to everybody in the Friday class
Is there
coming
somebody on the telephone?
up. Not anymore. I think they hung up.
How many people came on, like 2 or 3?
I have to check the thing that's going to send an email out.
My mom, my pop didn't say you take the drumstick from it. I went to school and bought some more.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barakataya Hawa by Shimi Hawa Shai, Sharan from the now, Parya Gapan Tawada Aman. La Yahwa by Shimi Hawa Shai, Yashra. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. I'm Madwa, Panyua Yerushalayim, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Babakushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aithad, Yamyan, Aithad, Shalak, Ma'ika Allah, Waha'alahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemar Ayel, Barak, Rapah, Magan, Wachazayak, Banya, Yasha'ala, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'if, Rabiam, Bayanah, Rabiam, Sabalanwa, Rabiam, Amawan, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabiam, Rabiam, Haganah, Rachanaya, Wasalak, Kal, Katsayamnawa, La Akim, Wa Akiwa, Wayasha'ala, Thamyad, Waiwalam, Ba'asham, Yahawashai, Tawada, Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Prayer for the food. Yahweh, Gadawo, Ba'asham, Arawanya, Yahawasha, Babakusha, Barak, Ma'ako, Yanawa, Shatayawa, Yanawa, Yayan, Yanawa, Lacham, Yanawa, Shakara, Yanawa, Zakhar, Shal, HaChadash, Ba'asham, Yahawasha, Thawada, Aman, Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahawashai, Barak Nawa, Wiyasha'ala, Wabathya Saparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allahoi Nawa, Yahweh, Akher. So that will say, Layla Tawa, Wa Shakadash. All right, then circle up. All right, so we're going to go around from right to left, each of us individually. Do the salute.
I know, he always like that.
Akim, Amagwa, Barakwa,
How about Hashem, Hashem, I come.
He wants somebody.
say it again.
Howard by Hashem,
Mm-hmm.
Barak, I come.
Yahweh,
Howard
Ba'asham,
by Hashem,
Yahushai,
Yahweh Shah,
Barak,
Barak,
Atham.
I come.
So say it 2 more times.
Howard by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Barak, I come.
1 more time.
Howard by Hashem, Barak, no. Howard,
Let us do it. Let them do it last.
Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Barak, I come.
Barak, Atham.
Barak, I come.
Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Barakatham.
Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Barakatah.
Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Barakatah.
Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, Barak, Atham.
Barak, I come.
Can we do the girl? Woo! Girl.
Hey, don't worry about it.
No, I gotta learn to say the last word.
It's on the paper.
Dang, nigga trying to eat that. All right. But what you say?
It's Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, Shamar, Atham.
Shamar and stuff. Okay, thank you.
He's terrible.
No, I thought we would get it right with
You
you.
probably ate already, all right?
I wish I did. I was out there hanging with Ray to him. Say it again. The last 2 words.
Shamar,
Shamar,
Atham.
Atham.
It's on the paper I printed out for you guys.
You got one?
You got more than one. Both of you.
That was my cousin.
I got it in my records.
You know? So we can't blow this every day, only on the feast days.
Okay, let me try and answer this again.
They don't try to answer it again.
So
It just says it in the Bible.